Welcome back to Spork Syndicate. This is Tom, and we've got a fun build today. Welcome to a WIP, or a Work in Progress. This WIP is two Hot Wheels project speeders, stacked on top of one another like Immortan Joe's Gigahorse from Mad Max Fury Road. The Gigahorse, two 1959 Cadillacs stacked on top of one another with a pair of engines and 4 tractor tires on the rear, is an iconic vehicle from Fury Road. When I was looking for a project for Death Race 2023, I found this WIP and knew it would be a fun one to complete. This project began as one project speeder. I was going to fill in the blanks and provide front fenders. And then I found out there's a muscle speeder, which is the project speeder with fenders. When the project is done, it becomes the muscle speeder. During this build, I stocked up on 3D printed car-mounted guns, armor plating, push bars, and other goodies to convert regular castings into warriors of the wasteland. As I took this on, the feeling was bittersweet. I knew there would be overwhelming odds that this build was going to go home with one of the other entrants, so I prepared myself for the loss. Besides, I can always make another one. I knew I would fabricate the suspension, both the front and rear axles, as well as the drive shaft. The next challenge would be coming up with the right exhaust system. I used exhaust pipes from 2 bone shakers. I put them upside down to add a flowering effect to the front and give it some bulk to match the oversized back end. For the undercarriage, I checked out the Gigahorse blueprints and some Just Trucks 4x4 frames I had for reference. I used brass pipes for the primary axle tubes and struts for the rear frame. For the drive shaft, I used a plastic rod and a silver bead for the U-joint, and then angled it up into the base. Some brass heavy-duty staples came in handy as a pair of leaf springs to support the front axle. As with most of my builds, things start to fall into 2 main pieces. The base, new frame, axles, interior, and engines made up one piece. The twin bodies and all the weapons made up the other piece. For the very back, I needed something to add a little pizzazz. The Project Speeder's rear bumper is a beautiful, boomerang-like chrome thing, but there's a parachute molded into it. So I found the toothy front grille from an Evil Twin. It matched the lines of the Project Speeder upside down, so that's how I mounted it, just as I had the Bone Shaker exhaust pipes. To reinforce the 2 bodies' bond to each other, I added some tin pieces. Not only does it dent and rip like quarter panels, it also looks like armor plating. Throughout the build, I continually did dry fits. Each time, I was happy to see everything fit together for the most part. After adding JB Weld to fortify the 2 motors, things weren't fitting as well, so I had to grind the plastic base flush with the frame. Since it was JB welded to the brass frame and undercarriage, I wasn't worried about weakening the joint between the 2 project speeders. It did make quite a mess, though. I used styrene to build a balcony in the trunk of the top project speeder, but it needed something more. I had a pair of underslung twin Gatling guns, but there was this open space. So I added an artillery cannon. This would be the best point from which to fire such a weapon because the rest of the vehicle would act like a giant kickstand. Time for scratches and dents. The GIGASPEEDER is not a king's throne. It's like Lancelot was for King Arthur, an unassailable weapon to wreak havoc on all who oppose it. The last step in the build is another round of JB Weld to lock down any of the tin that's sticking up to ensure no one accidentally cuts their fingers. No one should require a tetanus shot to handle this car. I used sandpaper to make the tires look more worn, and really love how they came out. Let the record show that those are Samed wheels on the front, even though the labels didn't survive the process. I also added bullet holes and cracks to the windshield. All it took was an X-Acto knife and some patience. Time was getting short, so I called a few audibles when it came to paint. The first was to use rattle can primer instead of my airbrush. The second audible was going to be easy to hide. I hand painted the base coat. Since the weathering would hide the quality of the paint job, this was an easy decision to make. I went with red as the primary color, with sky blue and olive green trim. My thought is that they painted with whatever they had after they ran out of red. Using brighter colors like these, as well as the construction-like yellow on the front brush bar, helped provide a little pop of color amid the oil, exhaust stains, rust dust, and the scoring from all those guns firing. After the primary colors and some decals were done, I got back to rust, mud, dust, and other splatters and drips. The rust effect was a combination of not only colors, but textures. In addition to oranges, browns, blacks, and tans, I used some thicker paints to add bubbling and chipping effects. I furthered this effect with makeup, which would be sealed under a matte clear coat. The small clumps of dust would grab onto sticky paint and, when teased with a paintbrush, create imperfect edges that looked like years of corrosion. Another dry fit kind of shows you how it's going to look. Let's break out the stage lights. If you were going to the wasteland for a death race, the best way to win is before the race is run. 2 bodies, 2 motors, 16 raging cylinders, and 7 guns to lay waste to anything that gets within a half mile of you. Behold the GIGASPEEDER, Spork Syndicate's entry into Death Race 2023. thanks again to Jody Sims, aka Jode0, for hosting Death Race 2023. It was a great competition, and, as improbable as it were, the GIGASPEEDER won the event. How about that? For Spork Syndicate, this is Tom, and I've got a bunch more cars to stack.